Hi, I'm Pav.
And I'm Neil.
And welcome to the Top 10 of Anything podcast.
Let's start the countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Everyone loves being scared. I don't, it frightens me. But the horror, anxiety, and sheer hell we put ourselves through while witnessing scenes in movies that will stay with us forever is one of the mysteries of the motion picture. Be it murder, ghostly goings on, or the latest Adam Sandler comedy, we love putting ourselves through the ringer. Here's our fact hunter of fear, Neil, with 10 fear facts.
Well, thank you very much, Pav. So what I've got for you today is the top 10 voted for scariest movies from Rotten Tomatoes. So at number 10, we have It, the 2017 version. At number 9, we have Insidious. At number 8, Sinister. Number 7, Halloween, the good old original. Number 6, The Ring, but the 2002 version. Number 5, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 4, they've got The Shining. And number 3 is The Conjuring. And number 2 is Hereditary. Now, can anybody tell me what they think the number 1 scariest movie is? Over to you.
Grown-ups.
Nearly.
Don't know, something recent. Get Out?
No.
About The
Hayley?
Exorcist.
It is The Exorcist. Has been voted for as the scariest movie by the Rotten Tomatoes subscribers, viewers, lookers, whatever you want to call them. So there we are.
So that's it, is it? That's your top
That's
10?
it this week.
I had my soundboard all full of different horrible, gruesome sounds, and you've just gone straight through it.
I have. Sorry, sir. Play some gruesome sounds for me.
That's the shrill one. I can't be bothered. I'm not going to do it now. Turn the music off. And anyway, thank you very much, Neil.
A pleasure,
And
sir.
we are here to count down our top 10 scariest moments in movies. And we are joined by Darren and Hayley from the HD Movie Podcast. Hello.
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 Oh, no, hang on. I've just got to muted you, haven't I? That was clever of me. Right, say it again. Say hello. Oh, it's starting well.
Hello.
It's going well. Fine. It's going well. Right, there we go.
Hello, guys. There we are. We're in.
Hello.
Hello.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
thank God for that.
what's interesting about that list, though, is it's all horror movies. Now, we haven't got just horror movies in our list.
No.
Neither have I.
But I suppose that's the problem when you put scariest movies. I tried to do some facts on scariest moments and it was all horror. And I've already done a lot of facts about horror, so I didn't want to repeat myself and thought, well, it'd be interesting to find out what people had voted for as the scariest movies.
Now, the one thing I will say is that I think, not like you guys, all of you guys that are here, I'm not a massive horror movie fan. There are certain movies I like. I tend to get a little bit bored with horror. Neil's steered me in certain directions for certain horror films, and then I've gone, oh my God, that was like amazing. But there's certain films he'll talk about, and I think, no, I'm going nowhere near those particular movies. But you two are obviously horror fans, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that I've steered Hayley towards, and she's gone, nope, not watching that.
Really?
Like the Boogeyman, because it was terrible.
Oh, come on, it's a classic.
Oh,
One of the
I'm
worst.
my things that I've steered people towards is like French horror. I think is superb at the moment. Obviously, Asian horror is still strong and changing things, but to me, for the last 10 years, French have led the way. I like their horror. It leaves you scarred.
Definitely something that, again, it's the kind of thing where people come to me and say, do you have any good horror movies to watch? And I kind of think, well, yeah, I've got some good ones to watch, but I'm not sure you're going to enjoy them.
That is the thing about horror. Horror is one of those genres that when it's done well, it's really, really good. But there is so much bad horror.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because it's like easy to do a cheap horror movie, so it ends up being really bad. Whereas to do a cheap comedy, you can probably get away with just sticking a couple of farts in there and it's hilarious. Well, for me anyway. I mean,
I think it's a gateway for a lot of people, horror, because it's the sort of genre where you can do it kind of in your back garden with your mates and you don't need to use a lot of resources. And I think that's what attracts a lot of people to horror. You can make it for very, very little money. And some of the stuff that's made for very, very little money is amazing. But there's also a lot of, well, not to put too fine a point on it, crap out there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But what annoys me with Western horror, talking on the horror theme still, is when they get something, they stick with it and ride with it so long. So, like your Insidious sort of movies and the Conjuring things, and you think, come on, this is just a ghost train ride. Give me something with flesh, and that's what I really, really, really want.
Yeah,
some meat on its bones.
Yeah, not the first time you've said that, Neil, is it?
No.
Give me some flesh. That's the,
usually at Sunday dinner.
Yes.
So when we were compiling this list, though, we had quite a lot of supernatural horror on there, and we narrowed it down to one because otherwise it would be too much of the same. So
right. Okay. Because you've done a combined list, haven't you?
Yes.
And there was a lot of, I'm assuming there was a lot of work and a lot of arguing. Who ended up having the sort of the tilt of power?
To be fair, we didn't argue. We actually got on quite well and we compromised. And
I think
we don't really argue.
Well, not yet, actually. I mean, we've kind of 50 episodes into the podcast and we haven't had a blazing row yet. So it's coming, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. And if we can help in that way, then I'm quite happy.
Because me and Pavel have a blazing row.
Oh, we will. The amount of times Neil has upset me and disappointed me with some of his non-choices, it's palpable. Anyway, Hayley, Darren, give us your number 10 scariest moment in movies.
Okay. You want me to begin?
Okay.
This is great. Number 10 is from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971, and it's the Tunnel of Terror scene.
That's my number 9.
Wow.
That's my number 9. Yeah.
That almost made my list. Yeah, that's terrifying. The real slaughter of chickens behind you. Let's go.
Yeah.
That was it.
Why did they think that was suitable in a kids' movie? It's just so psychedelic and bizarre, and it's just 3 minutes of absolute terror. And Gene getting more and more manic. It's
It was the 70s. They were all tripping balls, weren't they? That's why. So, yeah,
I think the whole movie gives you a false sense of security because it's so colourful and wonderful music and how funny the Oompa Loompas are. And then you have this 3 minutes of sheer horror in the middle. And even just the look on Gene Wilder's face where he's sort of staring with those like piercing eyes. And then, the chicken getting his head cut off and stuff. Yeah. I mean, oh my God, straight off the bat, look, we've got a duplicate already. I bet that was one of those ones that you thought, well, no one's gonna choose that. I completely agree. It is horrifying.
And that is genuinely on my honourable mentions because I nearly put it in my list. So, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was featured on a lot of lists when we were going through lists to get ideas and inspiration for ours. So it's no surprise it's in there. But yeah, literally, I said to Darren, did you know that a chicken gets its head cut off in this? And he was like, no. And then I was like, right, pause. And he was like, shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Oh, that's good. That's a good start. I mean, whether that's the only duplicate, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting if it is or if it isn't. But go on then, Neil. You're number 10.
So it's the film Audition. Hopefully everybody's watched this. And if I say the body in the bag.
Yep.
Yeah.
The bag in the room. It's terrifying because you don't have an inkling or a clue what it is.
I think we should say at the moment, we'll say spoilers for the movies we're going to talk about.
It is fine, but this is one film that if anybody's listening to this that I haven't watched,
I haven't seen Audition.
I don't want to say too much because
it doesn't matter. It's just
no. I genuinely don't. I've said enough with the body in the bag. That'll do. But when you get to that bit, boyo, I found it more terrifying than the kitty bit at the end.
Yeah,
just something about it haunted me forever. This moving body bag in this room. That's all I'll say to you, Pab. It just left an indelible impression on my mind. And I still watch that film now. Why?
I went to see Audition at the showroom in Sheffield because they did a series of Japanese movies, and it was across the board. And I guess a lot of people thought, oh yeah, haven't seen a lot of Japanese movies, and there were clearly people that were in Audition that had no idea that they were into that sort of stuff. And when the bag twitches, somebody a couple of rows in front of me nearly hit the roof.
Yeah, wow. It is. It's a great movie. So I recommend anybody that has a slight interest in horror, go and see it.
Is it available streaming anywhere? Do you know?
It's on Shudder if you've got Shudder.
Oh right, okay.
Which has got a 7-day free trial at the moment. So I recommended it to a guy recently, and his words back to me was, "What the fuck?" And that's the reaction you want.
I think it's a one-off experience. It was for me anyway. I haven't seen that movie in absolute years. I think I was like 17 or something when I watched it. And I was like, I'm glad I've seen it now. But yeah, that was intense.
It's a great movie.
Okay. What was no? I'll say it afterwards in case it's on your list. Okay. My number 10 is another surprising one. And this is probably just horrific for me. It's the knife near the eye scene in Mission Impossible 2. Now, I don't know if you can remember this. It's the fight scene between Dougray Scott and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And Dougray Scott goes in with a knife, and it is literally, 2 millimeters away from Tom Cruise's eye. Anything to do with eyes sets me off. But the other thing with this is I remember seeing the making of it, and apparently they put the knife on a rig so it wouldn't move. And then Tom Cruise sort of shimmied his way underneath the knife so they could get the shot. And I always thought to myself, God, what happened if Tom Cruise sneezed or went like that and lifted his head? It would have got him in the eye. So it just sends me, just my nerves are on a knife, no pun intended, on a knife edge whenever. And I was looking at it to do the video playlist that will accompany this on our Patreon. It just sends, when you just feel so like every fiber of you is uncomfortable. I find that like it's scary, it's anxiety ridden. Yeah, it's not necessarily horrific because nothing happens, but just that. Oh, God.
Well, if you're not good with eye trauma, I won't recommend any Lucio Fulci movies then.
Right, okay.
He fills his movie with that sort of stuff. He really knows that audiences don't like eye trauma, and it's just like, there you go. Let's think of something really nasty I can do to somebody's eye, and we're all going, no, Lucio, you did it last time. He's like, nope, doing it again.
Yeah.
Okay, I will definitely stay away from, what was his name again, did you say?
Lucio Fulci. He does things like The Beyond and Zombie Flesh Eaters, and there's always a point in his horror movies where somebody gets something absolutely hideous done to their eye.
Right, yeah. Okay. I will stay well clear of that and Mission Impossible 2. Right then, Hayley, Darren, who's going next for number 9?
I'm going to let Darren have this one because it is Italian horror, and that's his niche. So.
Yeah, number 9 is the 1963 horror Black Sabbath, and it's the sequence where the nurse returns home and is followed around her apartment by the dead body of the woman that she's stolen some jewellery off. Now, this is just such a weird sequence, and to be perfectly honest, a lot of it is ridiculous, but it's the expression on the corpse's face. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's uncanny. It's freaky. I mean, I think when you watch the scene, you can laugh with it as well because it is really over the top, and especially like with the passage of time as well. But yeah, there's just something about that. You just wouldn't want her popping up like at the end of your bed at night.
Is it black and white or is it a colour?
It's colour. It's an anthology movie, so there's 3 stories, and depending which version you see, it's either the first or the last one. And there was an American version and an Italian version, and they juggled the order of the stories about. And the Italian one, I believe it's the last one, and it should be the last one because they save the freakiest until last.
Right. So I'm a novice when it comes to horror. Is Italian horror, does it go in phases? Italian horror still good, or was it a specific time that Italian horror was good?
Specific time, I'd say.
I think the 60s, you got things like Mario Bava's sort of Black Sabbath, Black Sunday. 70s, you got all the Giallo movies, which were great. 80s, you get Argento in his prime. I think it's fallen away a little bit because the Italian film industry isn't very well funded these days. So there was a heyday of the Italian film industry. But I think if you're going to go there's very distinct styles from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s of Italian movies. They're all good in their own specific way. If you want gore, late 70s, early 80s. If you want style, 60s.
Right. Okay.
Have you never seen the original, like, Suspiria in that part?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
There's a lot of classic horror films that I've never seen, but don't judge me on it, please.
I'm not judging. It's another avenue that's open to you.
I know, but I think you've got to be a horror fan. I'm not a horror fan. That's the trouble. I think I don't know. It's just not the genre perfect for a podcast where we're doing scariest moments to not be a horror fan. But there you go. There you go. Right, Neil, you're number 9.
Is the original Blair Witch, and it's the final act. It's the guy stood in the corner. Now, a lot of these I've chosen.
My number 5, by the way.
Is it?
My number 5, yeah.
It just leaves you with that moment of terror. And with the Blair Witch, I just think it's a perfect ending when they get down to that basement. And I think it's a really good film. Obviously, the start of the first-person camcorder held things. And I was lucky enough to be in Memphis when they were on tour. So doing a Q&A after you watch the film, Sanchez and that. And it was fascinating to hear him talk. So talking about Italian horror, they were big fans of the Cannibal Holocaust, and that's where they originally got the idea from and everything like that. But going back to that end moment when he stood in the corner, it's fucking terrifying, isn't it, really?
It is. It made our long list, the end of the Blair Witch. It was in the honourable mentions. Didn't quite make the top 10, but it was definitely something we discussed at length.
First film I ever saw when I had my first ever 5.1 surround sound, and I kept opening my living room window because I kept hearing somebody shouting down the street, Josh, or whatever. I was like, who the fuck is that outside? And it was the back. Fantastic movie to watch. I think it's a bit Marmite, that movie. I think you either really, really like it or you just don't get it.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that I've spoken to that I just don't understand why anybody enjoys that movie, because it's just like nothing happens, then something happens, then you have that big shock at the end. But I'm the same. Yeah, it's my number 5. That the whole fact that
it's another example of people making a horror movie for no money, but that's a good one that was made for no money.
Yeah, and it, like I say, it kicked off a whole genre, didn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. My number 9 was the tunnel scene in Willy Wonka. So, Hayley and Darren, it's your number 8, please.
Okay. So our number 8 is a scene from the 1996 movie Trainspotting. So not horror. And it's the scene of Renton's hallucination in the bedroom.
Right.
Like the baby crawling along.
The baby.
Baby crawling along the ceiling.
Nobody wants to see that in their nightmares.
No.
There's that, and it's just kind of how the scene is so unrelenting, and it just builds up, and then you've got like his dead friend sliding across the wall. It's like kind of goes from very mundane imagery to like his parents watching quiz shows to then this really horrific things like the baby and his friend and that. So and I remember when I first saw it, I couldn't like get it out of my head. So that's why we agreed on that one.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that one because I remember watching that for the first time, and yeah, that's very visceral. Just that, and as much as it looks like a doll, doesn't it? So it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's just the image of the fact that it's this dead baby. Oh yeah, that's a
great
good
choice,
one.
isn't it?
That is a good one. I want to do my top 10 again. No. Let's start again. That is a good one, and it's not a pleasant film anyway.
No.
When you said Trainspotting, I thought it was going to be him crawling through the toilet.
Oh yeah, that's pretty grim, isn't it?
It's not nice, but that's a good one. Very good.
It's a great choice.
Go on then, Neil. You're number 8.
It's Jaws. Going back to my childhood and watching this for the first time, and I don't know whether this part of the movie was the same to you, but it's the head in the boat when he goes down. Absolutely terrified the shit out of me when I was younger and allowed to watch it. And it put me off of watching it again when it was re-shown. I wouldn't watch that bit. I went out the room because I remembered it. Obviously, now I cope with it, but it still gives me the hairs on the back of my neck go up when he goes down into that water at night. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Even if you know it's coming, it's just no better.
It's not. It's a great jump scare, and I'm not usually a fan of a jump scare because I think it's cheap, but that worked perfectly in that movie. It was a great, great, great moment.
I will tell a story about the head in the bottom of the boat. My mum went to see Jaws when it first came out, and when the head drops out of the bottom of the boat, she grabbed the guy at the side of her, thinking it was my dad, but she'd gone with somebody else.
Oh, that old excuse. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I've actually got a story about that scene as well. We were watching it with my cousin. I can't remember how old I was. I must have been, I don't know, 13, 14, whatever. And she ended up scratching my retina in my eye because that happened. We grabbed hold of a cushion, and as we grabbed the cushion, she sort of went to go and hug me to sort of, oh no, and she put her finger right in my eye and scratched my retina in my eye. So my eye starts twitching whenever I see that scene now. Okay, my number 8. When we used to do a podcast called Movie Heaven. And we used to do that. I think we used to do a section called the scariest moment.
It was one of the questions, yeah.
This was one that used to come out a lot, and it's the forest scene in Snow White.
That's a good one.
Yeah, one of the most horrific, I think, scary things. I mean, not just for kids. You've got the woodsman, you've got all of the trees and the animals and the eyes, and I just think it's a classic bit of animation to start with, but a classic bit of horror. We've said it a million times, Neil, haven't we? That it's like one of those just scary moments that kids, back in whenever it was, the 20s and 30s, must have shit themselves. Oh my God, just to see that in a movie. But yeah, that for me is one of those moments in a movie. And even now, as an adult, you watch it and it sends a little bit of a shiver down your spine.
Yeah, it's creepy for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's unnerving for sure.
And if you go to Disneyland, you can experience it because there's a ride, and it's great. It's one of my favourite rides to this day, with all the trees coming at you. It's very Evil Dead.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Yeah,
Crikey.
Yeah. You queue up for 3 hours just for that, and it scares the shit out of you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, over in 2 minutes, but it's quite an intense 2 minutes.
Indeed. Okay, then, guys, you're number 7.
Right, number 7. This is one that I think will be on a lot of people's lists, especially if you were around at the time to see it when it was on TV. It's Salem's Lot, and it's the kid at the window.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great thing, isn't it? Great.
Traumatized an entire generation of people who went and thought, oh, it's Stephen King, but it's just a TV version. It won't be that scary. Nope. It's scary. I mean, the whole sequence where the kid's just there and and it's like, oh, God, make it stop, please.
Yeah, I've never seen this either.
Have you not? Being such a David Soul fan, mate.
I was going to say, is that the one with David Soul?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And James Mason.
Yes.
James Mason.
Yeah.
So a kid is at the window. What is the story with the kid at the window then?
I mean, he's trying to lure another kid who's in the bedroom to his certain death, but it's just horrible. There's mist, and you think, oh, it's all really hokey because it's kind of, they're overdoing it with the dry ice, and you just think, oh, this is going to be rubbish. And then this sort of spectral vampiric kid sort of floats towards the window, and you think, oh shit.
It's the scratching as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You hear the scratching really badly on the window pane. It's
right.
It's still effective. I think it's probably the scariest moment in that film. It's scary in the book as well.
Yeah.
Okay. See, now, another thing I'm sort of quite famous for is like not reading books, and I always wonder how. I mean, obviously Stephen King is like so successful and an expert at horror, but how do you get the atmosphere from a book? It's going to sound.
You create it in your mind, don't you? What you're reading is you visualize in your mind, and then it becomes terrifying. Or if you haven't got that ability, it becomes farcical.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's just what your mind brings.
What would you say if I wanted to read a good horror book that's gonna scare me? What would you say is the best horror book to read?
Oh, blimey! I'd start with James Herbert or Stephen King. That's your gateway into horror.
Maybe Pet
Richard
Sematary.
Lehman.
I think Pet Sematary by Stephen King or Salem's Lot. Those are like two of my favourites.
Okay.
So I would recommend them.
I mean, Rats by James Herbert is a classic. It really is, even though it's about rats. It is horrible and quite nasty. But I'm not. I mentioned Richard Lehman. I don't know whether any of you guys have read any of his.
Yeah,
they're like pulp sort of fiction, aren't they? They're not really scary. They're just comical. The Exorcist is a good one. The Book of the Exorcist is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of horror adjacent, but the novel, the original novel of Silence of the Lambs is great.
Yeah.
I think the film's pretty good, but the book is really, really good and so tense. I remember reading it on a train in the middle of the day, and there was one point I just thought, I'm going to have to stop reading this.
Right, okay. I have to say, actually, I actually read Hannibal.
Yeah.
When it first came out. But I think it's because with that, I like to picture the people in the movie. Do you know what I mean? So I have to have that in my mind. So I'm playing a movie in my mind when I'm reading it. I'm not a good reader. Let me just explain that. I'm not a good
Bless you.
Okay, Neil, you're number 7. Let's move on quickly, please.
Yeah. So we're going to go The Omen, but the 1976 version. We'll forget about the remake because we all should. It's the Billy Whitelaw moment as the nanny. Terrified me. Absolutely terrified me when she's trying to get through to Damon, and everything. Yeah. And what some acting by Billy Whitelaw. You've obviously seen this one, haven't you, pal?
Oh, yeah. I love
it. Yeah. I nearly put the bit where it's all for you, Damie, and she nearly hung herself. But no, it's the dark and the bit with Billy Whitelaw and the dog was there and all of that bit. It still bothers me because it's just pure nasty, isn't it? It's just pure. Yeah, it's good. That's so that bit.
Yeah, and it's aged really well. I mean, you think you go back and see the other thing, it's this because this is going to be rubbish now, but no, it still holds up.
It really does. And to think it was Richard Donner as well, Superman. Yeah, but great film. And I have watched the remake. I watched it once, and once was enough. I'm not a fan. I don't know whether other people think it was a good remake, but
I've not seen the remake, so I can't comment. I don't plan to see it. I've no real urge, but I'd like to rewatch the original because it's been so long.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah, avoid the remake. It's got no atmosphere at all.
Yeah, the people that are in the remake, you'd think, Julia Stiles, Liev Schreiber, I'd like them both. The movie's rubbish.
And David Thewlis as the priest, the David Warner role. It was all good cast, but they've somehow sucked any of the atmosphere out of it.
Yeah. David Warner was the photographer.
That's right.
Patrick Drayton was the priest.
Oh, that's right. Of course he was, yeah. He was the photographer.
Just the whole premise of it with the lines on the photograph. And it was the fact that you could look at the Bible and it had that, about the number of the beast. So when I was little, I thought, oh my God, because when I was little, I thought the Bible was like a storybook that told you what happened in the past. I didn't think it was anything else. So when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, this is true. There must be like an Antichrist because they've taken that bit out of that book, and they've made a film about it. I was fascinated with the whole thing. I think they made 3 movies and a TV special, I think, for number 4, didn't they? I had all the books.
With it's kind of a T. I think they put it out as a theatrical release, but it was actually
made for TV. Yeah. Didn't it have the girl from V, the series V in it? Didn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then Sam Neill was in number 3.
Yeah, number 3 is not bad, actually.
Yeah. Okay, my number 7 is quite a general one, but it's Christopher Lee's Dracula. Anything to do with Christopher Lee as Dracula. And we've on our James Bond episode, he's fantastic in The Man with the Golden Gun, but it took me ages to watch that movie because anytime I saw Christopher Lee in anything, he was Dracula. And it was just that whole thought of somebody plunging their mouth into your neck and drinking your blood. And he is, for me, the scariest Dracula there's ever been and probably ever will be. Just the eyes. Yeah, he just frightens the crap out of me. So
it always reminds me of a Friday night Hammer House. They would put a film on, wouldn't they? The Hammer films on a Friday night, and we were always allowed to stay up and watch them.
I don't know whether I've not seen one for years, so I don't know whether they hold out a Hammer movie, or they just look like a horror version of a Carry On film. I don't know.
I mean, I think they do because some of the festivals play older movies, and they tend to gravitate towards things like Hammer, and some of the older movies actually stand up quite well. I mean, veering off slightly, I saw Curse of Frankenstein last year at a festival. Curse of Frankenstein is brilliant. It's like 1957 movie. It is absolutely brilliant. And I think they should Taste the Blood of Dracula as well, which is quite good as well.
Yeah. Right, okay. Again, I'm assuming they're all on like Shudder as well, aren't they, the Hammer movies?
I assume so.
Yeah, I think there might be a few on there. I mean, for me, like, I've never found them that scary because I've come to them quite late and they're tame compared to a lot of stuff that's out now. But they're still, as Darren say, very good films. And part of horror history. So, they have such an influence.
Yeah.
And talking of atmosphere again, they were one of the greatest companies ever to put the atmosphere in all of their movies. There was always an atmosphere to it. You always knew, even though it wasn't that scary. What's the one with Ralph Bates? The vampire one, whatever. But that one was like almost comical, but it still has that air of the horror atmosphere coming through, which I always admire. I think it's really good.
Exactly. And you've got Christopher Lee, and there's just the presence of him in the movie, even if it's something like Dracula AD 72, which is nonsense from start to finish. All the bits with Christopher Lee in are quite scary.
Right. And then, of course, he ended up in Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. But yeah, he's always been Dracula for me. Okay, Hayley, Darren, your number 6, please.
Okay. He's giving me this one because this is my childhood trauma, possibly the reason that I became obsessed with horror as well. So this is 1990s The Witches, directed by Nicholas Roeg, who'd also directed Don't Look Now. And obviously realising that later on, I can understand why this film has such an atmosphere about it. For me, I saw this in primary school. It was at Christmas time when people would bring VHSs in, and the teachers thought, this would be a great kids' movie to put on. Well, half of us had to walk out. I stayed, I persevered, but I was absolutely terrified of this film. And we had a choice between 3 scenes, didn't we, for this? But with the one we've gone for is the Grand High Witch when she pulls her face off.
Yeah, it is disturbing, isn't it, that movie?
Yeah. It has.
We have to get Mr. Beans in it as well, wouldn't we?
Yeah, well, actually, I remember that was a bit of relief for everyone because when he appeared, everybody just went inside in union, Mr. Bean. So, yeah, so that was like kind of nice that he was in there as a bit of a comfort. But otherwise, no, it's a very, very dark kids' film. And I just can't believe it's actually made for children. I know Roald Dahl's writing was very dark. And as I say, it's interesting. We've got 2 of his works in this list as well, so it shows a testament to him. But we've got the scene as well with the painting with the little girl who gets captured by a witch and trapped into a painting until she disappears, and that sets off the tone for the movie. And then, of course, there's the evil witch who tries to lure Luke from the tree house as well. That's quite an unsettling scene because if you're a kid and you're approached by a stranger, it's that sort of like fear that it provokes. So, The Witches is always one that's held up with me. I even did enjoy the remake. It doesn't hold up the same, but I still thought they did a pretty good job with it as well.
I haven't seen the remake yet. I was going to ask.
No, I haven't seen
anyone's seen it.
That's
it's more
Anne Hathaway, isn't it?
Anne Hathaway.
Yeah. Too heavy on the CGI. I think we like the whole Jim Henson's workshop effects in the original, which definitely make it. But they made her look so grotesque, and just frightening.
God, that's a film I haven't seen for years and years. That's got to be streaming somewhere. I would have thought, isn't it? I'll have to revisit that one. But yeah,
possibly Netflix. I have a feeling it's on Netflix.
I think it is because where's the remake? Is the remake on Disney Plus?
I think is the remake Netflix as well.
Is that Netflix as well?
I actually rented it when it came out because it came out in 2020, and it was like you could pay for it to watch it. So that's what I did off iTunes. But it's either Netflix or Amazon, I would say.
Right. Okay.
Rather than Disney, but. Yeah, it's worth watching. Good performances in it. I kind of liked the differences they made to it, how they updated it. And it's got like a Motown vibe to it as well, which is quite cool. So it's different. But I would say like kids would be better off probably watching the remake than the original.
Right. Because the original is just too scary.
Yeah, like I'm still afraid of this movie now, and I know me and my friend are planning to rewatch it someday. But just those 3 scenes we watched to prepare for this episode, like I was like, oh my god, no, it still gets me. I'm in my 30s now, and it still gets me.
When it's a PG movie, have something where somebody pulls their face off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I bet that's on the little thing in the box, isn't it? By the PG sign, it was like people do pull their face off.
It should warn you.
Right then, Neil, you're number 6.
So, Event Horizon, the only film I like from Paul W.S. Anderson, great horror movie, and it's the bit with Sam Neill as Dr. William Weir when he's crawling through the air ducts. It's near the beginning of the movie. It's almost a jump scare, but it was something I really wasn't expecting. And when he turns around and sees his dead wife is behind him, absolutely freaked me, and it basically freaked the cinema I was in to the extent that the woman behind us shouted, "Fuck this, I'm going home," and stormed out. And the rest of the movie lives up to that. I think it's a really well done horror film. It shows Paul W.S. Anderson can direct. It's just a shame he hasn't done it since. Yeah, a great horror movie. And I really want to watch the director's cut. I've never seen it. Has anybody seen it? It is around some places, isn't it?
No, because I saw it, again, Horror Festival, Sheffield Horror Festival, played Event Horizon, but it was the theatrical cut. But there were lots of people that hadn't seen Event Horizon before, and it went down the storm. Everybody pretty much loved it because they just didn't know what they were letting themselves in for. It is a great movie. It really, really... It's
a ghost story in space that is sort of a journey to hell, isn't it? They're off to hell. Yeah. Off you go. Strap in. And we all forget what a great cast is in it, like Lawrence Fishburne and Sean Pertwee and Sam Neill and Jolie Rich. Is it Jolie Richardson?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
Great movie.
It is batshit crazy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like I think from remember seeing the trailer and you think, oh, it's a sci-fi sort of adventure movie. That's great. And then I remember everybody was going on about getting it. So I thought I'll buy it on Blu-ray. Watched it, and I can remember like eating my popcorn and like just stopping eating the popcorn because I thought, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy. It's like no eyes and this whole bloody orgy scene kind of thing going on with blood and guts and God knows what going on. Yeah, it's a great film. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Right then, my number 6 is The Wicked Witch and the Flying Monkeys from The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, bless
Classic.
you.
It's another one where even now, I think just that whole... what was her name? Margaret Hamilton, wasn't it?
It was,
the witch.
Yeah.
And I still look at those monkeys and thinking, how did they do those? Are they real monkeys? But they've got like they look a little bit distorted. They look a bit weird. But just the whole design of that witch. I mean, it's the classic witch, but she was just kept me on edge for probably the first 20 years of my life. And then every time you see her now, it still is just that thing that, again, in a movie that is all light and wonderful songs and very much like Willy Wonka, you know, there's the, not the Oompa Loompas, what are they called? The Munchkins.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this horrible witch creature thing is just there. That is pure evil and very, very scary for children and adults alike, I think. But no one else has got it in their top 10, no?
No.
Because you're hardball guys,
I love The Wizard of Oz. It's one of like my favourite childhood films. I was never too afraid of the witch. Like, she unsettled me a little bit, but you know, nothing got me as much as the Grand High Witch. So I'm sorry she takes the crown there.
Maybe that's another top 10 witches we can do. See?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay then, guys, you're number 5.
Number 5 is the sledgehammer attack from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is so brutal and so terrifying. I remember
it's abrupt as well, isn't it?
It is. It's very quick as well. They don't really build an awful lot up. The guy comes in, he's trying to find out where the girl's gone. Obviously, she's met a really disgusting fate in the other room, and then sees the door. The door slides back. Leatherface comes out, whacks him with the sledgehammer. He twitches for a bit. He whacks him again, and then he pulls the door shut. And that's the end of the sequence. And it's so quick and it's so terrifying. I mean, I've seen audiences in cinemas where even if they've been a little bit vocal up to that point, once that happens, dead silence.
Yeah, it's a great movie. We are talking the original, not the remake.
Original.
Yeah. But what a great movie. That soundtrack is just, it just puts you on edge straight away, isn't it? It's there on purpose. It's fingernails going down the chalkboard soundtrack.
Yeah.
But what a great movie.
And all the production design is designed to make you feel ill as well. You go in that room and there's all sorts of, there's feathers on the floor and there's God knows what, there's animals. And it's just, it's revolting. And then after that, they hit you with this. It's just the fact that it's so bleak, that bit of the movie. And it's just like, well, if they're going to do this now, what the hell are they going to do for the rest of the movie?
Yeah. And surprisingly, quite tame, really, to think it was banned for so long, wasn't it?
Yeah. Basically, it's what you don't see. And a lot of the stuff, it happens very quickly are off camera.
That's
and
right.
it's just what you think you've seen. I mean, I've had conversations with people about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and said, oh, when you see him get cut up, and it's like, you don't see him get cut up. It's off camera.
Yeah, it is.
It's
Yeah.
clever.
I'm intrigued to see the new Netflix thing. They've done what they did with Halloween, haven't they? And they've cut out all the sequels and all the remakes, and it's supposed to be a carry-on from the first. So I'm intrigued. The trailer looks promising. So we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, myself and my wife went through a phase a few years ago where we hadn't seen the classic horrors of Friday the 13th, Halloween, Exorcist, all of those. And we were so disappointed. My wife's a massive horror fan. She loves the jump scares and stuff. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think, was the one out of all of those classic horror movies that I actually find really unsettling. And I think, it's like you say, Darren, it's not because of what you see, it's because of what you don't see.
Yeah.
It's that, and just that vision of Leatherface slamming the door, or that's the unsettling stuff. Is you have an idea of what's happening behind that door, but you don't see what's happening behind that door. Yeah. And I think that's for me, I think, is the key to horror, is the stuff you don't see. I think we get, I don't know about anybody else, but I've got desensitized to watching gory horror because of things like Walking Dead.
Yeah.
It's like now every week on your TV, you're watching people's heads getting sliced open and people being eaten, which is stuff like back in the 80s. And they were the bad videos, the video nasties, that you would have to really try and find from somewhere or under the counter in the video store, because you're not allowed to watch these kind of things. Now it's just on normal everyday TV.
Yeah,
stuff that is like shocking to watch.
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes we hearken for the old days, don't we? We just go and grab a video and you think nobody should be watching this. Let's stick this in. Oh my God, what's this all about? Now it's just everywhere. Oh God, I sound like an old man. Okay. Neil, you're number 5.
So it goes back to my childhood once again, and it's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the Child Catcher. The first time he appears, ice cream. And I used to have to walk out when that part, I did walk out when that part started, and it still frightens me now, that Child Catcher. The guy that plays him, I forget his name off the top of my head, was perfect, wasn't he? He was so sinister. He even frightened Benny Hill. Nobody frightens Benny Hill. But yeah, it was terrifying, wasn't it? When the first time he came to get the kids. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that made the long list, didn't it? The Child Catcher.
It was everywhere. He was everywhere, the Child Catcher. And I did see that scene recently because it was on over Christmas. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't personally frighten me, but I can understand why kids would find it unsettling.
Yeah. A kid in the 70s, we didn't have the video in that, did you? You had, you basically watched it on TV and frightened yourself to death like I did by watching it. And I remember watching it with my grandparents on my own, being so scared, I had to sleep with my granddad.
I think he was a ballet dancer, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
That movement, isn't it?
Yeah.
As well.
It was just the way that he moved. He moved sort of effortlessly, but just with that menace. Yeah, he was very, very scary.
And it's quite a benign movie, mostly, City Bang Bang, but it's got this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a lot of those movies. I mean, say like Willy Wonka or anything else, Snow White. It's that they're not horrific movies, but they have these little slices of horror inside them that just leaves you unsettled. And I think that's the key to it. Is then you don't know when they're going to turn up again.
Yeah,
so it just gives you that little bit of doubt and a little bit of this sinister feeling as you're watching the rest of the movie once they've been introduced. Yeah.
And good old Ian Fleming, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah.
He wrote it,
Indeed. Okay, my number 5 was Standing in the Corner, the Blair Witch Project. So, Hayley and Darren, it's your number 4, please.
Oh, so this one really did terrify me when I first saw it, and still to this day. It's from Pet Sematary, the 1989 version, and it is the character of Zelda. So it's 2 scenes she features in, but I think we were going to pick the first scene that was the most terrifying, where her sister Rachel is relaying the story of how she had this really ill sister and how she had to take care of her and how her spine was twisted and she was just dying up in that back room. And it just the most unsettling imagery. The character of Zelda was played by a male actor as well. But it's just such a chilling moment, and you get the flashback in this scene as she's talking about it. And it just, even though the film is creepy, I think that is where it gets truly horrific for me. And then there's a scene later on where she's having a bit of a vision of her again, and she basically runs up and she's like, "You'll never get out of bed again." And I just remember that. And I was about 13, 14 when I first watched this. And then, because I'd watched a lot of horror by then, I was just like consuming all the horror I could. And not much bothered me, but that, like, I was thinking, she's going to be at the end of my bed tonight.
Yeah, that's creepy as that is.
Well, as you were saying that, I was almost like that lady that was behind Neil in the cinema. I was going to say, fuck that, I'm off. Yeah, I don't think, I was about to say, I might watch that. I don't think I'm going to bother. I think I'm going to leave that just to...
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, you got Herman Munster as the granddad. You got to watch it.
Oh, well, that's all right then. If
it's all good. Herman Munster's the granddad.
Don't say what happens to him, though. It might put him off.
Yeah, no,
what happens to Herman Munster, Neil? He
marries somebody and moves into this big gothic house, and they made a 60s comedy series, which Rob Zombie is apparently doing he is doing the remake. I saw the pictures.
Yeah. No, come on. We're not worried about spoilers. So what happens to...
I'll let these guys
It's Fred Gwynn, isn't it?
Well,
yeah.
Well,
so, yeah, go on, Darren.
I was just going to say, do you have an aversion to razor blades?
Well, if they're anywhere near your eyes, then definitely yes.
Well, it's not near Herman Munster's eyes, but it is very near his Achilles tendon.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was one of the ones where I actually saw it, and I was sitting at home. I think I watched it on video. I didn't go to the cinema to see it, and that was one of those moments where, even though there's nobody else in the room, you get that involuntary
yeah
when it happens.
Yeah.
That's weird. My Achilles tendons are just literally tingling when you said that. They're just feel
horrible.
Okay.
Wasn't it directed by what's her name? Who did American Psycho? Wasn't it?
Mary Lambert.
That's it.
Because I do. Recently, we watched the Netflix movie A Castle for Christmas, and that's directed by Mary Lambert as well. And when
really?
I actually posted a tweet and I said, "Mary Lambert, Pet Cemetery, Mary Lambert." And then about 5 minutes later, Mary Lambert liked my tweet, so it must have been.
There you go.
Amazing.
Wow. Awesome.
Wonderful. Awesome. Go on then, Neil, you're number 4.
So one of my favourite films of all time, American Werewolf in London, and it has to be The Dream of the Hospital Bed with him in the woods.
That's my number 2.
When he's jumping around and then he gets to the bed and there he is lying in the bed. And suddenly, well, it is a jump scare, isn't it? But it's also very scary and surreal. He's suddenly like this demon vampiric thing with a white face and screams at you, looking straight into the camera, which is what I love about John Landis. He loves that breaking the fourth wall, doesn't he? And that was perfect in there.
That was all part of the same scene where he wakes up and then Jenny Agutter comes in.
Yeah, so they do that one.
Like the Nazi ghouls come. It's that right? Yeah, because it's a whole nightmare scene.
Carries on, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then he gets his throat cut, and
yeah.
That's fucking horrible. That is that whole scene. Yeah.
There's a lot of good dreams in that one. But what a great movie! And bear in mind, it's 81, isn't it? So that's held up so well. I watched it recently, and I thought, wow, the effects are so perfect. Yeah, great movie.
It's that transformation scene, isn't it? It just still holds up. And it's just one of the greatest horror movies of all time. It doesn't scare me, but I love it.
Yeah, great humour in it.
It balances all the comedy and the horror really well because it's funny when it needs to be, but it's really horrific when it needs to be as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that was my number 1 horror film when we did top 10 horror films.
Yeah.
I think it's the makeup on Griffin Dunn when he's not quite decomposed, but he's just got like bits of flesh hanging off him, and you can sort of see through his throat and stuff like that. And how they've done that in the early 80s without CG and that, it's fantastic. Absolutely is. I think that sometimes you can rely on the CG a little bit too much. One of those perfect movies for me, American Werewolf in London. Okay, my number 4 is Evil tracking through the forest in The Evil Dead. If there's a sound that you can have that is horrific, it was that sound. Now, when I was whatever time, when did that come out? 80, 81?
85, I think. Evil Dead 2, we're talking, or Evil
Dead I'm talking about the original one to start with.
82 then, wasn't it?
It was 82, I think.
Yeah. I can remember obviously that was one of the that was from the original video nasties. And then whether it was my dad had the video or an uncle had the video, and all I can remember is hearing that sound and the fastness of the evil going through the forest absolutely terrified me. And still now that sound is just one of those triggering moments in your brain that it sort of stops me in my tracks. And
again, it's a point of view shot, so you don't see what the evil is. It's the fact that you know something bad's happening, but you can't see what it is.
Exactly. And again, another one of those things where it's especially the first one, the movie was made on less than a shoestring budget, so they used what they could use. And I think if they'd have had 20 million to spend, they wouldn't have come up with that particular effect. No. And that effect is just so good because, like you say, it's not what you see, it's what you hear. And the sound is just, it's one of those sounds that's pure from hell. Didn't they sort of invent the Steadicam because of it? I mean, they used a board, didn't they?
It was kind of a version of the Steadicam, yeah. And I think because they couldn't work out how to do it, but they worked out that if they stuck it on a board and kind of pushed it along on this board, and depending on what the length of the board was how shaky the camera was. So they kind of experimented with this. So it was kind of a bit of a Heath Robinson job, but it works really well.
It does work very well.
It's iconic. It's an iconic. I said it, Neil. Sorry.
No, it doesn't matter because it is.
I didn't mean to say the I word. I'm sorry. Okay, Hayley, Darren, you're number 3.
Oh, this one scares the shit out of me. Oh, when we rewatched this, I was so creeped out just thinking about it. Go on, Darren.
Am I all right announcing this? You okay?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Right, number 3 is Ghost Stories, and it's the Night Watchman segment.
Okay.
When he's investigating the noise in the ward. Oh, God.
Scary mop.
Yeah, the scary mop, actually. The scary mop at the start, I mean, that's a really good fake out where you think it's somebody in a bed and it's just a mop. But then from then on, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it is one of those moments where you think, don't go any further, just go back. Go back into the office, don't go any further. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that was another one where I was in the cinema and it wasn't the fuck that I'm off, but somebody a couple of rows behind just went, oh.
A great reaction. Did you guys see it on the stage?
Yeah, it was the last show I saw before COVID hit.
Okay.
And I absolutely loved it. But yeah, that scene on stage as well. Just, I don't want to say too much about it because it not to spoil the show, but I was sinking in my seat. It was horrible. I can still remember it now. But I would definitely go and see it again.
I took my daughter to see it. She was only 7. No. She was it was for her 18th, I think. And I don't think she's left the programme here. Actually, literally, as I speak to you, here. Because it scared her on stage so much that she doesn't want it in her bedroom.
It is terrifying, though. I think Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson just have this knack. They really understand horror. They're horror fans themselves, and they know what's going to scare, and they do it in such a clever and sophisticated way. It's not all about what's going to jump out at you, because we even agreed that if we did this episode, say 10 years ago, we might have put Insidious in here. But now it's just, I think with Ghost Stories, out of all the supernatural scares that we could have chosen, this was the one that stood out the most to us. And as I say, I got quite tense rewatching the scene. It had been a while, coupled with what I'd seen on stage as well, because obviously, you know yourself, just that sound coming from the back as well in the stage show. But
one of the cleverest stage shows I think I've ever seen. The fact that you're sat in a theatre and it just gets colder and colder and colder is just superb.
Yeah.
And the smells that drift through the theatre, and you think it's very immersive. Yeah. I'd happily watch it again. And I always think they should do what they said and do another one. They were always saying that we can do another one. We've got the stories, but it's never materialised. But they should.
Hopefully
I get the feeling that I've completely missed this whole thing. So there's a movie and
it was a theatre. It was a stage show first,
right?
Starring Andy Nyman, which I got to see in London.
Okay,
with your brother, and I was blown away by what they achieved. And every story is sort of like a generic horror story. You know, it's the damp, dark warehouse, and then you've got the guy driving alone in the woods at night, and then the room upstairs that nobody goes in because of a tragedy, and it all links. So it's all everything you know, but when you see it live in front of you and everybody else is in that moment and in the atmosphere and watching it, you get taken along for the ride, and you really do jump and you really do get scared, and it's very clever.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a movie as well.
Yeah, they
on
made
Netflix.
a movie. Yeah, in 2017, the film came out. So I saw the film first because I never got the opportunity to see the stage show, but I loved the film and I was really excited to see it on stage afterwards. Even though, like, because I know the stories, it didn't take away that impact with knowing. But yeah, that scene, and it's like there's that song in it. I think it's called "Why." It's like a 1950s, 60s song that plays on the radio continuously, and that gets more nightmarish because I can't hear that song now without thinking about ghost stories. And it's just like how when we were watching it, he was going down the stairs with this flashlight. I was like, why would you go down there? Just don't do it.
It's on Netflix, Pav. It's really worth watching.
Right,
yeah,
okay, I
really
will, because it's weird that there's other people that I've spoken to that have mentioned this ghost, and it seems like it's just completely passed me by.
Turn the lights out when you watch it.
Yeah,
no
sure.
fucking
Sit in the dark.
It's the best way to watch a horror.
You think I'm an idiot? No, I'm having every light on. I'm going to bring extra lights in just so there's extra light and I can't see the screen.
Yeah, the first one in particular benefits from having the lights out, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's got Paul Whitehouse in it, so you're associating him with comedy performances, and you think, oh, it's going to be a bit more knockabout because it's got Paul Whitehouse in it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Good movie.
I will give that a go. Neil, you're number 3, please.
So it's in The Exorcist. A lot of people said, why? There's nothing scary in that. And I have this argument with people daily now. The younger generation just don't get The Exorcist, I've come to realise. But it's the first time you ever see the head rotation. Absolutely freaked the shit out of me. So it would have been the early 80s I saw it, when it was still available on VHS. You could just go and get it. I was in my early teens watching it, and yes, that head rotation, it was something you'd never really seen before. The clicking of the bones, combined with everything else you'd already seen, just freaked me out. And it is probably my favourite horror film. Sorry, American Werewolf, but it is. As you know, it always features in my horror list, pal. I'm a huge advocate of The Exorcist. I think it's one of the most perfect films.
It is a brilliant movie, and who knows what audiences in the 70s thought when they saw it for the first time. Because I think, you're right. I mean, with a modern eye, you can look at The Exorcist and say, oh, this bit's hokey and this bit doesn't really hang together. Even so, just the atmosphere and the writing and the tension and the performances, you can forgive the odd creaky moment because it's a really, really scary movie.
It is. It starts terrifying in Iraq when Merrin's digging up the statue of that demon, and you see it, and that pure visual with him stood and the wind blowing, the sun swirling, is terrifying in itself. So it starts on a side foot, and off we go. Love it.
Yeah.
You were the reason that we watched The Exorcist, I think, because you were going on about how scary it is, and especially that first scene in Iraq. And I remember my wife and I watching it, and that first bit, we went, "What the fuck is Neil talking about? It's just a guy stood in the desert with like this gargoyle head. So there's nothing scary about that." And then we were like really expecting that this is going to be hide behind a pillow, finger in the eye kind of scary, and like we were so disappointed because it wasn't. We were waiting for it to be really, really scary, and it ended up like, I thought, God, this is like just hype. I've seen it since. I've watched it a couple of more times, and I can see why it is like a great horror film. It's just, I think that first time we built it up so much in our head, that when we watched it, we were like, oh God, is that it? Is that? Oh my God, that was really disappointing.
I've been to the steps in Georgetown, by the way.
Oh,
really?
Fantastic.
They're bloody steep. No wonder he goes down the whole lot of them. I mean, we were at the bottom and I was like, yeah, take my picture, I've got to. And somebody came past and said, is there anything connected to these steps? And I said, trust me, if you're a horror fan, these steps are a very big deal.
Yeah.
So my mum actually saw the movie on release. She was only 16 at the time, and she snuck it. and there was religious protesters outside the cinema begging people not to go in. But for her, it was one of the scariest movies she'd ever seen, and she refused to watch it for years. And we were at a film festival and it was showing it, and I encouraged her to watch it. And she did admit that it definitely had lost its impact compared to back in the 70s. I mean, for me, again, I think it's an excellent movie. I watched it in my teens, but again, because I had that background of hype behind it, it's you're expecting it to be worse than it is. I think for me, it's just sort of when they're going up the stairs and you can just hear the sounds. I think that's very effective.
I keep saying, don't go in the fucking bedroom. Just leave her in there. She'll be all right. She'll get over it.
Yeah. My dad was a projectionist at the local cinema, which hasn't been there for years, when The Exorcist was playing, and they had religious people outside and St. John's ambulance ready to take people if they fainted and stuff like that. He said he'd never seen anything like it before because it was just crazy. You know, people being sick and people just fainting and stuff like that. I didn't get it. I didn't. Never understood.
Well, I mean,
the
each to
problem
their
was
own.
as well, I'd seen Scary Movie 2, which probably didn't.
Right. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Repossessed.
Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen.
But that actually had Linda Blair in it.
It did.
No, I haven't seen that one. That's been on my radar. Thinking, I must check that out, and then I've forgotten about it. So thanks for reminding me.
It's actually quite funny. I must say, it's one of the better sort of spoof movies.
It is fun, and they clearly have watched The Exorcist. So it's not one of these things where they've just tossed it out. There's somebody who's actually gone through The Exorcist and thought, how can we take the piss out of it? There we go.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Right, my number 3 is from The Descent. Ooh. And it's nothing to do with the horror, but it's any time you see someone potholing. That frightens the crap out of me because I suffer from, not vertigo, what is it? Claustrophobia. Yeah. Why anybody would want in their life to go potholing, I have no idea. Photographs of somebody crawling through a tiny little space just sends me... I mean, the horror is horrific in The Descent. It's one of the horror movies that genuinely frightened me anyway, but I think it's because I was so on edge because of the potholing originally. But anything to do with that kind of stuff just really buries deep into all of the fears that I have sort of deep within my soul.
Yeah,
I've got to ask.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
to horror. To all of you, did it actually happen, or was it all in her head? Oh, we've got all thinking now.
I think it does happen. Yeah,
right.
I think there's, you can read it both ways, but my feeling was at the end, that they have all died, and the fact that she's having this hallucination right at the end about the party and everything, it's kind of that they have all died and she's finally gone over the edge and that she's about to die as well. Well, or rather she is about to die unless you've seen the second one, which suddenly she's back.
I was going to say, didn't it answer
the happy
in the
ending.
Second one?
Well, they did it because America likes a happy ending. They didn't like, well, who doesn't like a happy ending? But they didn't like the ending, so they cut it straight off. And then the second one starts where basically where she gets out. Yeah, the dream when she pushes herself through the hole. But no, I've rewatched this recently, so it would have been last year, beginning of last year, and I'm on the persuasion that it's all in her head now.
I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, we'll have to go back. Maybe we'll do an episode on it sometime.
Yeah. But the last good Neil Marshall film, there you go. Yeah,
I'm trying to think back on I think you're probably right there. I'm trying to think about the ones I did.
I did enjoy The Reckoning. I'm sorry. I did. I enjoyed it. It's not like amazing film or anything, but I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I feel I'm being judged.
You're not being judged, no.
It was lockdown last year, so
yeah,
I didn't have a lot to.
His Hellboy was just awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, not a good movie. Sorry, Neil.
Awful.
Right then, you're number 2, then, guys.
Okay, so this one, I think this is the most anxiety-inducing one on our list, and this is the plane crash from the first Final Destination movie.
Oh, yeah. Yes, a while since I've seen that, but that is a scary moment, isn't it?
Yeah, somebody who really doesn't like flying to start with. That was a movie that just set off all sorts of alarm bells. And weirdly enough, I have seen a Final Destination movie on a plane, but it was 3. It was the roller coaster. Still quite challenging programming for an airline. It's like, oh, we're going to
I know.
Destination movie. It's like, really? Okay.
Jesus, why would you put that on an aeroplane? Oh my God, you've got nowhere to go.
No, but that sequence, it still holds up. Like, I hadn't rewatched it for a long time, but every time I fly, I think of that movie, and ever since I've seen it, it always pops into my head before I get on a plane. I'm over it. Planes are generally pretty safe, and it's all fine. People fly every day. I have to keep telling myself that. But that scene really did provoke me, and it's just again how it, the tension builds throughout, and just I think it's just that anxiety that's presented on the screen where like the aircon stops working and. Yeah, it's just, and everything just goes to hell really very quickly, and it's horrible. And you think he's smart getting off the plane. You think he's smart getting off the plane, but they're not smart. I don't know if it was better for these people to have died on the plane like they were supposed to, or what the fates befell them afterwards.
It was a great premise, wasn't it? It really was a good premise.
The trouble is, after like 4 and 5, then you understand what the premise is, and you sort of know what the formula of and it ends up then they're just trying to work out different ways of killing. It's a bit like
Saw, isn't it?
Saw,
Saw.
And Paranormal Activity, where it's the same premise on all the movies. They've got to try and find just different set ways of killing people, basically.
Am I right in thinking that it was an X-Files episode that didn't happen?
It was, yeah. It was originally the X-Files, yeah. I'm kind of glad that they didn't go with it and they made it into Final Destination, because it is one of my favourite horror movies.
Yeah.
See, that's another movie. I haven't seen that for ages, but I used to love, the first couple I think are really, really good films. And then they sort of, again, like all of those kind of movies, they sort of think they just go down in...
They get diluted, don't they?
As they go, as they go. Go on then, Neil, you're number 2.
So this is not the remake, it's the original. It's Martyrs. It has to be there. I've banged on about this to Pav for years until he finally watched it. The whole film could be a scary moment, in my opinion. But to me, the one that always lingers, and it is scary, is what the hell did she say to her?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that today. I was actually thinking about that scene today.
What did she say? It's scary to think what went through that poor girl's mind. But yeah, I'm still unsure. Did she tell her the truth? Did she lie? Who knows? I'd love to know your guys' opinion on what you think she said.
It's just so oblique at the end. It's something that obviously gets her to do what she ends up doing at the end. So it's obviously something that's so apocalyptic that she goes off and I won't try and spell what happens at the very end of it, but yeah. Again, it's the what you don't see, what you don't hear. Again, it's just the worst thing that you can think of, and it's just playing on that. But as somebody who was recommended that you see Martyrs, what was the reaction when you'd seen Martyrs? Because I've recommended it to a couple of people, and it hasn't gone down well, I have to say.
Well, I didn't know anything about the movie, and all Neil kept saying to me was, you have to see Martyrs. You've got to see it. He said, I'm not going to say anything, just watch it. So you start off watching it, and, well, spoilers, bullshit, but you think it's a home invasion movie. So I'm thinking to myself, right, it's going to be like torture porn. It's going to be like Saw. They're going to take these hostages, and they're going to do horrible things to them. And then it just changes into this weird movie, and I was absolutely drawn in. I couldn't stop watching, and that bit at the end, it just leaves you with so many questions and so many thoughts, and it is horrific, but it's not, I don't think it's gratuitous. Thank you very much, Hayley. In the fact that it's like it's visceral, but it doesn't do it for its own sake, if that makes sense. It's all for the story. And to have that bombshell at the end that's so ambiguous, because you, like you say, you don't know what they're saying. No. You just know what she obviously has heard makes her go and do what she does. And it leaves you then thinking, well, hang on a minute, I need a little bit more, just give me a little bit more. And then I made the mistake of like watching half an hour of the American remake, and thought to myself, well, I was glad I didn't watch the whole film. But
because it's got every sort of genre in it, nearly. I mean, at the beginning when you've got the little girls, and then you get the visions of the demonic sort of person creeping around, which obviously links into the end. And then, like you said, it goes into home invasion, almost like torture porn, and then you get that ending. I think, and I was on your, Darren, I was with you, but I'm starting to think, and this is the bleak me coming out, that there was nothing.
That's how I would go. I would say that she told her that there's nothing.
Yeah.
And she thought, then what's the point of living? What's the point of living if there's nothing?
But the director, he was going to be the big American new thing, wasn't he? He was signed on to do the remake of Hellraiser and everything like that, and just vanished, which is really sad. But
yeah, it's a film I've seen once. Again, an experience. I had to pour myself a large glass of wine after it. I just remember just feeling quite drained. But yeah, it's an excellent movie. I would say you should at least watch it once.
Yeah, I don't think it's a film that I'd like to go back and watch again and again. I think watching it once and getting that, well, as Neil's probably seen it 10 times.
Only about 4. It is a struggle still on the 4th watch to watch.
Yeah. I don't think I could watch it again. Okay, so my number 2 was the nightmare scene from American Werewolf in London. So Hayley and Darren, if you want to give us a rundown of your 10 from 10 to 2, I don't know how you want to do this. We want to do it one each. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, we can do it in the sort of order that we said them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I starting?
You're number 10, Hayley.
3, 2, 1, and action.
Right. Number 10 was The Tunnel of Terror from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Number 9 was The Nurse Returning Home from Black Sabbath.
Number 8 was Renton's Hallucination from Trainspotting.
Number 7 was The Creepy Kid at the Window from Salem's Lot.
Number 6 was the face ripping of the Grand High Witch in The Witches from 1990.
Number 5 was The Sledgehammer Kill from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Number 4 was Zelda, Any Scene with Her from Pet Sematary 1989.
Number 3 was The Night Watchman from Ghost Stories.
And number 2 was the plane crash sequence in the first Final Destination movie.
Wonderful. Neil, give us your 10 to 2, please.
Okay, so number 10 was Audition and The Body in the Bag. Number 9 was The Blair Witch and the final act in the basement. Number 8, Jaws and the Head in the Boat. Number 7, The Omen and the Billy Whitelaw and Young Damien. Number 5 is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with the child catcher. Number 4 is American Werewolf in London and the dream sequence in the woods. Number 3 is The Exorcist and the original head rotation. Number 2, Martyrs and What Did She Say?
Wonderful. My number 10 is The Knife Near the Eye from Mission Impossible 2. 9, the tunnel scene from Willy Wonka. 8, the forest scene from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. 7, anything that was Christopher Lee and Dracula. 6, the Wicked Witch of the West. Was it the West?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Flying Monkeys from The Wizard of Oz. 5, Standing in the Corner from the Blair Witch Project. 4, Evil Tracking Through the Forest in The Evil Dead. 3, any kind of potholing in The Descent. And 2, the nightmare scene from American Werewolf in London. So, Hayley and Darren, what is your number 1 scariest moment in movies?
It's a movie that started life as a TV project on the BBC. It was released in the mid-80s. It is the movie Threads, and it is the sequence where Ruth walks through the ruins. It's about 1 minute and 3/4 of absolute nightmare fuel.
And I have to be honest, I have not actually seen the full movie. So Darren first introduced me to the concept of Threads about a year ago when we were talking, and I've seen the trailer for it, and I watched this scene, and after watching this scene, I was actually, I don't mind this being number 1 because this is some of the most horrific imagery I've ever seen in something. I was hoping it would be available on BritBox, but it's not.
Can I say they showed us this at secondary school?
They did with me as well.
Yeah,
I remember.
We were all disturbed. Nuclear fallout.
Right. Yeah.
And I live quite near Sheffield as well, so seeing Sheffield getting destroyed wasn't like a big draw. But I'd seen it before they showed it as at school. I'd seen it pretty much as they'd screened it first time. And then a few weeks later, it turned up as part of an English class, I think.
That's it.
Yeah, and they said, and basically they said, we're going to show you this. If you want to leave at any time, you can leave. And I think about half of the audience went because it is so unrelentingly great.
If I remember correctly, is there a scene where a woman has a baby and she like bites through the umbilical cord?
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep. It's
I can remember.
That was kind of queuing for precedence in like what's the worst thing in Threads. But I mean, you could just pick anything in the last 2/3 of Threads pretty much because it's all horrific.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I can remember America did one called The Day After, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. And it was very Hollywood-fied and very American. It wasn't as gritty as what I can remember Threads.
Yeah, there's kind of a grain of hope at the end of The Day After. Whereas at the end of Threads, it's like, nope, we're all fine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dear. Right then, Neil, you're number one.
Right, it's not a horror film at all. It's Mulholland Drive, a great David Lynch movie. And it's not a movie that has any scares in it until the bit when they're in the diner and they get around the back and we're introduced to the trash witch. What do you want to call her?
Yep.
Trash tramp, whatever it is, when he or she pops out. Holy fuck. Nobody I know that has seen that movie was expecting that. And boy, does that stay with you. I know it's a jump scare, but it's the vision of her as well. You are not expecting that shit.
Right.
And it still gives me the willies, as Pab would put it.
I've never seen Mulholland Drive, so
it's a great movie.
That's something to look forward to.
And it's kind of usual David Lynch weirdness for quite a long time. But this comes out of absolutely nowhere.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It is genuinely terrifying.
Is it like part of the story?
Not really.
Not really. There for the sake of just being there.
I think it's David Lynch thought, I know. Well, you know what David Lynch is like. Yeah, I just think he thought, do you know what? Let's liven this bit up. Because when I saw it at the cinema, I literally, all the heads in front of me, we all went at the same time. Woof. Like that in the cinema. Whey. And it gets me to this day because I forget whereabouts it is. And then all of a sudden, it happens. And I'm thinking, oh, well, fuck, I forgot that bit. It was Naomi Watts' sort of breakthrough movie. Wasn't it? Yeah, I'd recommend that, Puff. Definitely.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I've always thought I should watch, and I've just never ever got round to it. But yeah, I think I will now after hearing about the trash witch. Did you call
garbage it? Witch or garbage tramp? I don't know what they really refer to it as, but yeah,
I'm intrigued.
I mean, you know, you're saying like the head in the boat when you know it's coming, but it still doesn't make it any better. If you're watching Mulholland Drive, you know it's coming. It's like you're powerless against it. It's like it's still terrifying. It's not every time you watch Mulholland Drive, you think, oh, it'll be a lot better this time. I'm used to it. No, not at all.
No, it still grabs you by the bollocks and goes, hey! It really does.
Okay, right. My number one, the movie has been mentioned earlier on, but for me, it's the music in The Omen.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I have visions when I look back on my childhood of being up in bed with my dad and mum watching The Omen downstairs, and all I can hear is that ominous choir music.
Yeah.
And not being able to go to sleep because it just gave me nightmares. And as much as I love The Omen, it's still the one thing in The Omen with all the stuff that goes on in The Omen. It's the music that will send me just on the edge.
The old
and
Spice
I don't really know what I was watching a few clips of it, and I don't think it is the Old Spice advert.
Isn't it the bassist, Carmen Barata, or whatever it is?
Yeah,
maybe
but
I've got
it's
that bit
its
wrong.
own music. I mean, I'm not going to try and sing it because I wouldn't do it justice.
Is it Carl Orff or whatever his name is?
Yeah,
Orff?
I used to think that it was the Old Spice music, but I don't think it is.
It sounds like it's kind of in the same ballpark, but I think they did. Is it Jerry Goldsmith? Did he compose the music for it?
Yeah, well, I know that he did the he did the soundtrack, so I'm assuming he did. But I've always been under the impression that it was the music from the Old Spice advert. But I was watching all the clips today, and it's very, very similar. But I didn't watch very many clips because I started getting frightened.
I mean, it creates its own atmosphere because nothing has to happen on screen. As soon as that soundtrack kicks in, you think, oh God, something terrible is going to happen in about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you just need to see that little kid and you think, oh, yeah, there's going to be trouble. There's going to be trouble.
Throw him off the building now. Get rid of him.
Indeed. Right. We've got a few honourable mentions, so I'm going to whiz through these. At Nick Boyd Guitar on Twitter said, hey guys, being a big scaredy cat myself, I've got loads, but off the top of my head, as a kid, the Ghostbusters library scene, Dumbo trippy dream pink elephants bit, Watership Down, the scary bad rabbits.
Yeah.
And as an adult, Paranormal Activity, dragged from bed, Exorcist when she's floating from the bed, and 1408 moment when he sees someone in the building opposite.
Oh, that was John Cusack, isn't it? 1408. Is it Samuel L. Jackson as well?
I think it is. I think
yeah.
it is.
God, that's a one I haven't seen for ages. That's a Stephen King, isn't it?
He says, and now I'm too scared at home on my own to go upstairs to the toilet. Gonna have to wait a few hours with my legs crossed until my partner gets home from work. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Nick. And at Andy McEwen 1, The Fly from the 80s, the whole film. He says, penis in a jar. That's not what Andy's saying.
Right.
That bit from the
wasn't that a famous song by Thin Lizzy?
Oh dear.
Famously got kicked off Top of the Pops for doing that one.
Yeah.
At Chatty Geek HD, first ones that come to mind, as Nick said, Paranormal Activity, dragged from bed. Original The Haunting, holding hand scene.
Oh yeah, the Robert Wise movie, 1960, great film.
Okay, or Fly In on Camera, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know. I've never seen that. And The Ring, seeing the girl for the first time come at you.
That was on my initial thing, but the 1998 version, not the Naomi Watts one.
Right, okay.
The original is better.
Darren Brown says, Mama Fratelli threatening to cut off Mouth's tongue in the Goonies scared me the very first time I saw it. I was possibly 8 years old, I guess.
Fair enough.
Okay, Darren, yeah, okay. You're still
and he's a wrestler.
And he's a wrestler.
You know what I mean? He's a wrestler.
At this one, Samantha said, the Beware the Wheelers part in Return to Oz always freaked me out as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're bizarre things, they are. Yeah, it's a creepy movie all over, isn't it?
Yeah, we avoided putting it on the list because it was too obvious, but it is a great movie.
Yeah.
It's the heads in the cabinet for me.
Yeah, Return to Oz made the long list, but we just thought, it's probably going to be on most people's top 10. We wanted to steer away a little bit.
Right, okay. All right, then. Andrew Connor, our guest from last week, said the end scene in Caveat.
Okay.
Anybody?
Yeah, pretty good. I've seen Caveat. Yeah, it's a fairly recent movie. And I think a lot of the scenes in Caveat are really tense because they're really long takes and really tight close-ups on people, so you don't know where things are going to jump out or if they're going to jump out. So, yeah, it's a good call. Caveat.
Okay.
Wow.
Any tape from Sinister? The filter scene from Host.
Yeah.
Knock Knock game from The Orphanage. And Tall Man from It Follows.
Yeah. That's a good movie.
Stu Grant says Michael Myers appearing from the shadows behind Laurie in the original Halloween. At Dan Popomatic, that's a great name. The ending of Wreck.
Yeah.
Alice Oliver from Just Films and That. Scary Darth Maul looking creepy guy from looking guy creeping around from Patrick Wilson in Insidious. Also, is it The Ring where someone opens a wardrobe and there's a dead girl in there and her face is all messed up? Yikes.
Is that not The Grudge?
I think that's the Naomi Watts The Ring.
Oh, is it?
Because that scene scared one of my friends. That's how I remember it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm thinking of the girl with the jaw missing. That's the one, isn't it? In The Grudge. There you go.
Okay. And Lisa Buchanan says when Clarice is looking for Buffalo Bill in the dark and he has night vision goggles.
Good call.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to need to watch some comedy after this just so I can go to bed tonight.
Not going to sleep tonight.
all these visions in my head. So that's it for our top 10s. Guys, do you want to tell us a little bit about your podcast, where people can get it and people can listen to it?
Yeah, I mean, we run a podcast called the HD Movie Podcast, and we cover any movies at all, any genre, any year, and usually any quality. We've covered some shockers.
I had to listen to your episode about New Year's Evil. which seemed to get the thumbs.
Well, we
I was going
kind
to say
of
the
went-
thumbs up from you. Not
Yeah,
really.
it was all right.
it was qualified thumbs up.
Right.
Yeah. So we've been doing this for 51 episodes now. We've just recorded 51 because we've done an episode on the new Scream movie. So if you search Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram for HD Movie Podcast, or you search Spotify or Podbean or any podcast provider, we'll show up at some point like a bad penny.
Well, we'll put the link in the show notes so that people can just click on that so they can get and have a listen to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Neil, do you want to just tell everybody how they can get in touch with us?
Absolutely. Let's do this. So you can find us on all the social medias at Top 10 Pods. You can email us at toptenpods@hotmail.com. You can give us ideas for what top 10 we should do. Come and help us support the podcast at patreon.com/ you guessed it, Top 10 Pods, where you can get rewards such as our episodes, super early bonus episodes, and even behind the scenes, and a chance to be a guest on your own show. Check out all of our links via Linktree. You can find the link in the show notes. And please do come and subscribe and leave us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts and follow us on any of the other podcast providers you can find.
Well done, Neil. And of course, we've got the new video playlist that will go together with the episodes. I'm going to have loads of fun putting these clips in there. I'm going to be shitting myself every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But yes, so that will be up on our Patreon as well. And on the 28th and 29th of January, I'm going to be doing a 24-hour charity podcast. So I will be putting some links up. We've got some special guests that are going to be joining me. It's going to be in aid of cancer research and the Stroke Association. So I'll put some links into the show notes for this episode. But starting on Friday the 28th at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m., going through to 8 p.m. on the Saturday. It seemed like a really good idea at the time to do this. And the closer we're getting to it, I keep thinking, what the hell have I done? But we've got Michael Price, who is a executive producer of The Simpsons, is going to join me, and Tim Downey from Toast of London is going to join me. And who else have we got? Oh, we got loads of different people. Bean Baxter from K-Rock in Los Angeles, and the Ali and Bean Cup of Tea and a Chat podcast. Yeah, it's going to be fun, I think.
And me.
And Neil's going to be there to help me for an hour. I think it's going to be all right. I just need to make sure I sort of stand up and walk around for a little bit. And it's going to be like Trainspotting in here. I'm going to have a bucket for piss. I'm going to have a bucket for shit, a bucket for sick. And I think I'll be all right. I'll be a bucket for porn, did you say?
No, stack of porn.
Oh, right. I was going
to have a bucket for porn.
I don't think I could fill a bucket, Neil. I mean, goodness me. 24 hours. Anyway. So if you can join us and if you can donate, that'll be wonderful. We'll just let's see how we get on with that. It's going to be fun no matter what. Hayley, Darren, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having us.
Thank you for giving me nightmares.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
I can only apologise.
Oh no, don't apologise. It's all part of the show.
I'm not sorry.
No, good. I'm glad you're not. So that's it from us. So thank you, Hayley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you. It's been a delight.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, pal. Thank you, Hayley and Darren. Thank you very much.
And let's go and start the countdown.
10,